Hello, everyone. My name is Simon Fune. I'm a media coach for pastors and ministries, and I help them to connect and get their message to its intended for by helping them build the media channels for that message to get there, and then helping build communities and nurture that, building that around that. I have a very special guest with me today, and his name is Justin Nava. Is that correct? Is it Nava? It's Nava.
There you got it. Nava, just like that, just like
Okay,
lava.
Nava,
Yep.
and very, very honored to have him on the show today. This is the Ministry Media Show, and what we're going to do today is we're going to dive into a different perspective than what I usually teach in terms of social media. Mine is more focused on content. Today, we're going to talk a little bit more about strategy, method, etc. And I think this conversation is going to bring real value to it. Justin and I, there's a story of how we met. Justin, Rock is, would you say, is your boss, friend, associate? How do you refer to each other for
We're,
that?
we're, we're partners, business partners.
Okay, good. All right. So, Rock is Justin's business partner, and we hang out on, I think it's a platform, it's called Church Marketer. I'm not sure if that's where it was, but I just saw Rock in one of the comments mentioning, hey, that's what we do. I don't know what they were talking about. I think it was, the apparel wear, church wear, those kind of things. And
We're in there every hour of
you,
every day.
you're good. Yeah, it's a
pumping in
very,
value and answers and guidance. So it could have been
yeah.
anything.
And so they inspired me, and I'm spending a lot more time on there and other platforms where just giving value to the platform. So I learned a lot from that, just watching the last 2 months and them doing things that I know should be done but have not really happened. And so they inspire me. And I saw Rock, and then I somewhere in the comments I said, hey Rock, I would love to interview you guys, and he said hit us up. I think he referred me to Justin, and then every post that I did or comment where I tagged Rock, he would tag Justin. So I presume, if in a spiritual sense, Justin's like his armor bearer, he's his partner, and he's his Rock's right hand. So we'll meet Rock in another session where we'll do something different. But that's basically how we met. And having said all of that mouthful of things, Justin, how are you today?
I am doing fantastic, better than I deserve. We're recording this on a Thursday, Friday Eve,
Yes.
as I like to call it. Is it? Is it Thursday night for you? Where you're at?
It's Thursday night at 7, and what time is it there?
Prime time. It's 12
Right.
o'clock here.
Okay. Wow. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm like, Justin, this is what we're doing tonight. Here's the link. And I'm forgetting that it's like lunchtime for them. And thanks
Yeah.
for doing this during lunchtime. I did some research on webinars in the last week because I'm launching our platform in South Africa this week, and the overall feedback is don't mess with people's lunchtime. It's not going to work out. So I'm really appreciative.
Yeah, I don't take a lunchtime, so it's
Okay,
always
yeah.
work. You know, you might see me snack. I'll try not to snack during this, but
That's fine.
yeah,
I've also been like that always, and I think if you have interest in your own ministry or your own business, it's not something where you're working for someone. Then lunchtime doesn't really exist. It's not something that we understand the concept of. Like Justin said, you eat while you move, kind of thing. And so, Justin, so everybody that watches this knows that my strength is content, and I talk about consistency a lot. And those are two things that's important in our strategy that we teach ministries: is create content, consistency. Community naturally evolves and comes out of that. And then our fourth pillar is collaboration, but that doesn't really fit into those three different pillars. And so that is, for me, the bare minimum that should be done. When I started talking about COVID proofing your ministry the last month or two, we were talking about live streaming. And so we believe that live streaming should not be the only thing that you're doing. You should be creating things more than that. And so for my students, what I say is, listen, here's a method. It's four pillars. The first three is content, consistency, community. Community comes out of that. And so I'm focusing on content going out consistently, and that gives you attention, it gives you visibility, it gives you credibility, builds you influence, and so you have people paying attention to what you're doing. Any church that does that, and what we're going to talk about with you today is the next level, and I explain how that works. And so doing that, you immediately elevate yourself in terms of visibility, trust, credibility above any other ministry in your area, just by doing, even if it's one consistent piece of content a week. There's other ministries, they do a prayer session every morning at 8 o'clock. That's going on. Just think how you show people that you care about them if that's what you're doing. It's that little bit of effort. Look, you're doing ministry anyway. Why not go and put it on a live stream or a live video or create content around that? And for me, saying live stream's not enough, content needs to go out consistently. Then when I get ministries to that point and they are doing that, then I challenge them one step further and say, right, now let's create content in between. Let's fill in or color in the book. Let's do a little bit more. Let's add strategy to it. We've got these things. It does communicate. It gives value. But let's now put that extra layer on. It's like the icing on the cake. And let's just make this a solid thing so people get value. They see that you care and they are really engaging. And over time, there's messaging, there's branding involved, etc., which is not what we're going to come in today. But at the end of the day, when you're doing social media, strategy is very important. You can't just post things just for posting things, because you'll grab a meme and then you'll create a quote card and then you put a photo and then there's a podcast, and it's all messy because there's no strategy behind it. People don't know where you're going, and especially not just the formats, but also the communication and the strategy that goes out. So that's my frame of reference. What I want to ask Justin about today is, Justin, I believe you guys have come up with a strategy and a method for social media and posting. And so now I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to hand over to you so that you can start teaching us wise sage people from Church Marketer, and teach us about social media strategy and what is important. So I'm going to hand over to you. And if there's something that I don't understand or I think it might add value to the community that wasn't mentioned, I'll ask a question. But please go ahead and tell us. You guys have a method and it's called the B.E.A.S.T method, correct?
That's right. So thank you so much for this time. What I want to do today is so you leave today's session knowing what to post, when to post, and how to post in a way that clarifies your message, the reason you exist, why should people care, and why they should engage with you. And when I say social media engagement, I'm not just talking about likes, shares, and comments. I'm saying, what is my next step? Getting them to take a next step. Click through to your website, watch a live stream, message you. Messaging gives us a one-on-one. Ivan, you and I connected over Facebook Messenger.
That's
You're
right.
halfway across the world, right?
That's
so,
awesome.
I mean,
yeah.
that is something huge that we have our own neighbors that we can't see during this crazy time, but we can still talk to them. We don't need to know their phone number. We can just know their Facebook profile. I think that blows my mind still.
It is.
That
It
we
is.
just call each other on these platforms. It's just amazing.
Let me ask a question to you, Justin. At the end of the day, I want to say this. This is my understanding. At the end of the day, the reason why we do this, the end goal and the final objective, is a soul connecting to Christ and getting saved. That's the overall objective. Now, there's different ways of getting there. And let's be honest, there's a disconnect between the online world and the physical world. And overall the world, there's this challenge of meeting in person. We can't meet in large crowds. We can do small groups. And so this week, what we've been talking about is let's use social media by getting people interested in what we're about, making a connection. And there's lots of different methods to do that. You're talking about inboxing, there's texting, all those kind of things, just making a connection. But somehow we want to get people to connect. It's that meeting together and just touching base and really looking at someone in the eye and saying, I care about you, I love you, etc. So we need to bridge that and get that connection made so that someone says, I am interested in what Justin is saying. I've heard what he said. Now I want to meet Justin, and I want to see what Justin can do for me, because that's the radio station everyone listens to. They listen to the radio station, I think it's WIIFM. What is in it for me? They want to know what is in this relationship for me. How is this going to work, and why should I care about what you're doing? Do you care about me? And in the book that we're currently working together on, and kind of you guys have downloaded and read it, is this. In it, I speak about this quote that really touched me by Theodore Roosevelt that says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that, what I know, is my ministry. It might be prophetic, it might be pastoral, it might be evangelism, it might be leadership, whatever. But people don't care about that until they know that there's going to be something for me in this relationship when I invest time into following you, listening to you, etc. And I think that's what we want to achieve. So thank you I just wanted to add that in there.
Yeah. Even Jesus fed people, and he fed them till they were full. There was leftovers, right? So,
Wow.
we have to be
Yes.
valuable up front so they can then open. Steve Martin, comedian, in the context of comedy, would say, if you can get them to laugh, they'll open their heart to you. And that's why a lot of pastors will open up with a joke or tell stories that get you to chuckle before they hit you with the big truth. And so today, what I want to talk about, I love your context, consistency, community, and collaboration. What we're talking about today is not so much a whole different level or a different plane. What I think of it is, as we're going deeper into content, we're talking with that consistency. Through this content, we'll build community, and part of gathering this content is an active collaboration. So we're absolutely building upon, whether you want to think of we're bracketing down or building the pyramid on top, 100%
Nice.
it's going to come alongside. So this is not an either or situation. This is, let's build a foundation of the consistency of the content and community and collaboration, but let's also do it in this way. This is one method that you can use to get to build those pillars to hold up your platform.
Awesome.
First thing I want to say is actually address consistency. Let me tell you a story, Ivan. So there's two groups of people that were given 50 pounds of clay each, okay? And the objective was to make the best pot, all right?
Wow.
50 pounds, so 100 pounds total. So 50 pounds for one group, 50 pounds for another group. Now, the first group we're going to call the quantity group. They were tasked to take that 50 pounds of clay and create 50 clay pots. The second group we'll call the quality group. 50 pounds of clay, but guess what? All they had to do was make one perfect pot.
Wow.
That's it. Okay. So they took both groups, gave them a week, and said, you make 50 pots, you make one pot. And then they took all the pots, I guess 51 total, brought it to a market, and just let the people come in and said, which one of these is the best pot? The best pot came out of the group that was quantity. The group made 49 average, bad, okay pots, but the best pot came out of that group. Whereas the other group, they made one pot. They had one shot, all their eggs in one basket, and they didn't even make the best one. Quantity and consistency is how we get to quality, right? So the way I look at it is like a church, right? Pastor's going to preach. In a traditional church service, pastor's going to preach every Sunday. He could have a death in the family, a family breakup, visit horrible stuff happening in the community, and he's in the hospital, marital issues, kids crying, keeping him up all night, wakes up, the sprinkler system in the front is broken and his water's flooding. He's still going to be at church that morning preaching. Rain or shine, unless it's like an immediate emergency, he's going to preach, whether he feels like it or not. If he does not have a sermon prepared, he's going to go up there and he's going to say, I know what I want to talk about. Lord, guide me and let's wing it together, right? Pastor's going to preach on Sunday. Social media, we've somehow treated it like we've got to have this perfection. We've got to have that quality pot. And if I don't have that quality pot, I'm not going to make something. We need to treat social media strategy like we do preaching strategy. You're going to preach on Sunday. Sunday's coming. And so we need to have our format planned I recommend minimum five times a week, ideally 7 times a week. I think that's a great starting point. That doesn't mean you're doing something every day. You could batch it all up front. We can talk about that if you want, Ivan. But tomorrow's coming. What are you going to post? How is it going to relate to them? How is it going to communicate your message? So consistency is what we need to forget anything else. If you don't take anything else away from this, okay? I'm flipping it on its head. I know you're thinking I need to know what to post and when to post. And no, you don't need to know any of that. What you need to know is tomorrow's coming. What are you going to post? That's what you got to get in your head. Brent's coming. How are you going to make that money? I'm not worried about what I'm going to eat. I'm not worried about when I'm going to mow next month. I'm worried, how am I going to afford mortgage on the first? That's what we need to worry about. So when it comes to social media, if you tune out after this, I want you to hear this first. What are you going to post tomorrow? You got to post something. Figure it out. And with the commitment, Ivan, with commitment comes creativity. Okay? Creativity does not breed consistency. Consistency and commitment, there's some more C's for you, breed creativity. So I just want to have that frame of reference, because what I'm going to do now is tell you what to post. Okay? But you have to understand that quality, just because you don't have a great brand message doesn't mean you can't post about your brand. It just means you might have to post 50 times before you finally figure out what you're going to say. But if you give it that one shot and you miss it, you can't give up after that. You have to keep going. Treat it like baseball. Baseball, Ivan, I don't know if you watch the sport at all. It's considered a Hall of Fame record. If every time you go up to bat, if you can hit the ball 1 out of 3 times, you're a Hall of Famer. Right?
Wow.
They are literally, the game of baseball is so tough to hit a 99 mile per hour fastball. If you can just hit it 1 out of 3 times, you're a Hall of Fame. You're going to be in the Hall of Fame, right? So you just have to keep that mindset. Keep going in the face of failure. If no one engages today, that does not mean they will not engage tomorrow. The answer is not in the tactics that I'm going to teach you. The answer is in the mindset of consistency. You have to go back up to bat and try again. Does that make sense, Ivan? Are we tracking here? Are we on the same page?
It makes a lot of sense, and I'm assuming that you're going to move on to the next kind of point, and so I want to pause there and just mention something. I love what you're saying, and literally, I'm a student, Justin, so I'm learning from you. Thank you so much. My pad next to me, I wrote down 8 things right immediately, and so I want to quickly just speak to this is not. This is very good advice, and I'll tell you why. I don't know if anybody that is in our circles and on our platforms know who Gary Vaynerchuk is, but he's one of probably the best social media gurus, entrepreneurs. He built a company that has over 1,000 employees just in New York, and then he has branches all over the world. I think there's 2 or 3 of them, and what he did is, let's speak to a couple of things that I learned from him. I consider him my mentor, and it's funny, I've never met him. I don't know if anybody else has that kind of relationship. They really follow these people, they mentor them, and there's never been a connection. But what I've learned from him is 2 things. Number one, I remember when he came up, he was still nobody, and he did 1,000 shows of his show Wine Library. He did 1,000 wine tastings, and it was only after his 1,000th that he started breaking through, and he started really getting recognition. And the knowledge that he had from that and creating social media, that's how he built the next phase of his business, which was his dad's store. And so there's a big lesson in that. And I often, when we teach, especially content, we talk about patience and we talk about resiliency. I always say patience is the power that will make momentum become critical mass. And critical mass is what you need. That's when you become an unstoppable force. It's like a juggernaut, it just moves forward and you can't do anything about it. Yeah. And you'll never get that.
You're on the surfboard, but eventually exactly. You got to stop paddling, you got to start surfing.
Yes, it's like a snowball becoming an avalanche. There's nothing you could do to stop it, and you want to get that on your ministry platform. And so that's one thing that I learned from him. Another thing that I learned from him is a concept that he calls. I think Justin just framed it differently or phrased it differently. It's speed of content. Rather create 80 pieces a month and 2 of them makes a huge impact than for you to just try create 2 and nothing hits. So you gotta create as much as you can. And when you, like with me, if I have just a twinkle of an idea and I think it's an audio thing that I could do, I go and I do a podcast recording, or I at least write it down in my notebook on Evernote on my phone. And the reason I do that is because that for me will, I can take something out there and I can make it a quote and put it on a quote card, or I can chop it up, or I can go and I make a video of that. There's so many things that you can do, but you got to keep on creating. And I want to ask you this question. I missed just a part of it. You said something breeds creativity. What was that again? We were talking about commitment, consistency, and I've got these 4 pillars where eventually they were 4 C's at first. And so where that came from is someone asked me, why don't you teach us how you built a successful blog? Because in 2012, we had a publishing blog with 10 users, contributors all over the world. And we got some accolades and stuff. And they said, teach us that. So I said, well, there's actually 4 C's for success. It's content, consistency, community, and collaboration, because that's where it came from. And now it's a powerful point that you said. Maybe there's another C to this, and that is commitment. But commitment and consistency for me is kind of interchangeable. But it was in that context that you mentioned something breeds creativity. Is it that consistency? Do I become more creative?
Yeah. If you have a lack of creativity, I like to say, if you have a lack of creativity, you have a lack of commitment. Okay. With commitment comes creativity, because as you do things, it's repetition. Everything in life is reps, right? So, as you do it, you start to realize, okay, I'm saying the same thing. What else can I say? I'm texting the same thing. What else can I text? One of the biggest game changers in follow-up ministries, this is a free 5-second consult here. One of the biggest game changes, if someone visits your church and you call them, they don't answer, you text them, they don't reply. One of the biggest things you can do is get your phone, record a video. Hey, Ivan, you came to our church, haven't seen you in a couple of weeks, just wanted to see if there's any other way our church can serve your family. Text that, 50% return rate from people who have not talked to you at all. A simple video, because you're committed to following up, but how else how about a video? When you're committed, the creativity will come.
Wow, I love that, because I'll tell you how well that works, just for the audience, that they can understand how powerful a point that is and how great a teaching point that is. Two times in my career, like today, and that's something I practiced in the last month or 2, or let's say 6 months. If someone in my team has a birthday, and I have a team of about 250 people that I engage with on different levels and serve. And so if someone has a birthday and I have a really close relationship with them, even if it's like 2 or 3 kind of degrees separated, I would go and I'll record a birthday message just saying, hey, I know it's your birthday today. Thank you so much for being on my team. I really appreciate you. And something personal. It's not a canned message. Never do that. Just something where you connect to someone, you speak about the relationship and your appreciation for them. I've done that a couple of times. And number 1, people deeply appreciate that. And 2, other leaders pick up on that, and you can start a culture where you really make an impact. The other time I really saw it work is probably about 5-6 years ago. I had someone comment and ask a question on one of my live videos that I did, and I've been always hustling with this live video. I like doing that, where I have a thought, so let me go out and I just share it with the world. And then I had someone in, and I always say, if you have any questions, but that's what you should do. Get engagement. You tell people what to do. So he's saying, ask your question in the comments below. And this person posted a question in the comments, and I did something I've never done before and haven't really done much since, but it was so powerful. I went into the comments, and I don't know if you can still do that, but I took my phone and I recorded a video in the comment section for him, and that landed me a client. That's how powerful that was. The person said, I was absolutely blown away by that. Can we meet? And so Justin does a lot of that as well. And I think that's really powerful. Justin, I want to ask, before you move on to the next point, you were talking about minimum 5 times a week, 7 times a week is better. Would you suggest that you also look at how many, doing it a couple of times a day, or is once a day enough? Some of the advice out there is, if you're a big brand and a big church, you must, so like Gary Vaynerchuk would say, post 15 times a day if you can. Or if you have a team, let everybody be responsible for something. Would that be your advice?
Mark Zuckerberg is never going to call you and tell you to stop posting so much. Okay.
Yeah.
Whoever runs Jack Twitter, I mean, there's some people that need to stop tweeting so much, but he's not going to call him and say, stop tweeting, please. Okay.
Yes.
You cannot
Okay.
post too much, right? Now, what I want to do when I suggest 5 minimum to 7, that's graspable, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of the same thing. Like, okay, do I want to can I be a millionaire next month? Yeah, if I probably could if I really just neglected everything else in my life and became a bad father,
Yes.
bad husband, bad provider. Okay, sure, right? I'm sure there's something I could figure. Bad health, okay? I'm sure there's something I could do to like start making enough money. Not by next month, but in a few years, right? But we have other priorities in life, okay? And you have other priorities in ministry. So to get your feet wet, 5 minimum a week, 7 ideal. Now that's not the end goal, right? Just like Ivan, you actually said earlier, and I don't think you meant it this way. He said the goal of everything in our digital ministries is to create a soul converting relationship with Christ. But that's not the end. We can continue to use this as a tool of discipleship, as a tool to speak into them and
That's
grow
right.
them on their
Yes.
journey with Christ, right? The
Very
end
true,
goal
yes.
is not to post 5 to 7 times a week. My church right now this week is posting twice a day. And I actually did this on my Facebook, Ivan. I don't know if you saw that. We've been posting twice a day. Facebook put a little message on our Facebook page. It said, hey, your top fans haven't heard from you. Start creating more content. I'm like, I'm already posting
Yes.
twice a day. We usually post 7 times a week. And it's telling me, you want more? I guess I'll
Yeah.
oblige, right? And so it's one of those things. Again, I always like to say, as Grant Cardone that said that first, Mark Zuckerberg is never going to call you up. Your church members are never going to call you up and say you're posting too much on Facebook. You're posting too much on
Right.
Instagram. They may tell you you're posting too much of this one thing, in which case we
Right.
can talk about what that might look like. But they're never going to tell you you're posting up. So don't use that as the floor. Don't use that as the ceiling. Use that as the floor. That's what you start with.
Amazing. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
So let me actually go into the posting formula. Okay. Now this is a strategy, formula, template, whatever you want to use. Okay. I developed this back in flip the page there. I developed this back in 2015 for my own church. It worked game busters. And the reason is I found this as I started studying people. Okay. When you want to study social media, don't study what other social media agencies are doing. Study what the people you want to reach are doing. Okay. One of the reasons, this is an example, one of the reasons why vertical format videos work is because when people watch videos, if you look at them all, they watch it like this. They do not turn their, in fact, my wife drives me crazy. I will send her a YouTube video and she will watch it like this. Like it'll be letterboxed, just that tiny part of it. I'm like, turn your phone sideways, woman. But no, she will not turn her phone sideways. So you need to look at how other people are using the platform. And this is what I discovered. When I said, hey, I work at this church, or you should check out our church, check out our Instagram, people would look at it for about 10 seconds and then say, that's nice. Okay. In 10 seconds, you cannot look at more than 5 posts. When you're reading it, look at the imagery, all this stuff. When someone wants to get an overall impression of your church, just like we say, you've got 3 seconds to nail them on your website. You've got about as much time on your social media, maybe 10 if they start scrolling. Which then breeds the idea, what do they take away from your social media? It's your last 5 posts. On social media, your church is represented by your last 5 posts. Your top 5 posts on social media are your front door. The problem with that is, unlike your website, it's always changing. Anytime you post, that goes down the list, right? Now, the algorithm can keep it alive for a little while, and it could appear in a feed. We've all gotten Instagram images that are like a week old. We all see that. But when we go to your page, you're only as good as your last 5 posts. So that began the thinking in my head back in 2015 at my church. I said, what are the 5 things that I really want people to know about my church? When they see an ad, when they see someone share something and they want to, you click through to learn more about the organization, whether it's a business, a product, a service, an influencer, or a church, you're going to click through, you're going to scroll through all the gobbledygook, the about section, and you're going to look at their last 5 posts, okay? The only people, and I have to stress this because everyone tries to argue with me on this, the only people looking past that are other designers and other people in ministry, right? Because we want to get a more holistic. Normal people are not doing that. It's just like when you stare at a brand, Ivan, and you're thinking like, oh, what's wrong with this? It's like no one's looking at your brand for more than 3 seconds. If you sit and stare at any brand, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, American Airlines, FIFA, you will find something wrong with that brand in more than 10 seconds. But they paid millions of dollars, millions of dollars to people. There you go. Millions of dollars to people to make that brand because they know they got 3 seconds and that's all they need. So your top 5 social media posts, that's your church. To the guest, to the visitor, even to people thinking about coming back. So what 5 things do people need to know about your church? I boiled it down in these 5 things. Eventually I added 7 to make it once a week. But they need to know something you believe. They need to know that they will be better for having interacted with you. They need to know possibly what's going on in your church, either an upcoming event or something you always do. They need to know that you're open to dialogue, and they need to know the stories that are happening in your church. And so I'd spent a lot of time. And let me tell you, Ivan, we talked about why we call it the B.E.A.S.T formula. It's because I compiled it down to the word B.E.A.S.T, B-E-A.S.T. I really tried hard to make it like Bible or bestie or something. I just couldn't do it. So I went with B.E.A.S.T because I'm American. And not only that, I'm Texan. We're really full of ourselves. So I always like, it's how I psych myself up. This week on social, how am I going to be a beast? How am I going to go get attention? Who's got my attention? I want to go get it. Disney's got my people's attention. Netflix has my people's attention. The school system has my people's attention. How am I going to go get that back? Because we're only alive 24 hours a day. We're only awake 16 hours a day, maybe. And that attention's going to go somewhere. It's like time. That time is going to be used. How can you manage it? So how can I be a beast and go out there and get it? Not wait for someone to give it to me, right? We're being interrupted by marketing signals 700 times a day. How can the church not be one of those? How can the church be 100 of those, 200 of those, 300 of those? That's what I want to be. So I came up with the acronym BEAST. Okay. No one's ever fought me on it, but that's just how I remember it. How to be a beast on social media. Ivan, can I go into what the different anagrams are and then how to actually implement it at your church?
I'd love to. Let me just ask. I'm going to ask a couple questions.
Sure.
Someone that we both follow, I won't name his name, but says that often talks about strategy in a kind of posts, and then says, go and study those churches. Like, let's go to Elevation, look at what they're doing, etc., etc. Am I correct in saying that's not necessarily the best thing that we should do? We shouldn't follow other people and do what they're doing. We should listen to our audience and give them what they need and they want. Is that correct?
Listen and observe our audience. Okay.
Right.
If our audience is following Elevation, then that means Elevation is doing something that connects with them. If they're not, then why would you go study Elevation, right? Yeah. One of the things when we do copywriting for clients, and that's basically writing content for their social media, for their website, for their advertisements, events and stuff like that, one of the things we ask them is, what are you vying for attention right now? Because they're paying attention to them, and we're going to study, why are they paying attention to them? What are they doing? What are they saying? What are the key words that are really hitting those people? What is resonating with those people? This is very simple market research. And so, yeah, copying Elevation is great, but if your people aren't paying attention to Elevation, why are they going to pay attention to you? That's what it's got to be. You got to, that's why we say, are you a blue collar church? Are you a cultural church? Are you a new church, mixed church, diverse church, old church, traditional church, boomer church, family friendly church? And then we're going to study, if you're a family friendly church, how is Disney reaching to your people? Because we want to come alongside Disney and then eventually overtake them in your attention, because that's what we're vying for.
So yeah, if I go and study Elevation and I do what they're doing, it doesn't necessarily mean that my audience is going to be drawn to that. I can't make that assumption.
Yeah.
I want to just
can absolutely try it. I mean, you got
of course,
50 pounds of clay, but don't put all 50 in that one basket.
Right. Also, I want to ask this question because I'm a landscape mobile videographer, if you will. And so I like doing it in a landscape. And I would say to churches, listen, if you are going to do a talking head piece of content, etc., and I've seen the trend where they have the phone straight up, like horizontal, and they make moves like that. There's some hip hop videos that did very well, which are filmed that way. A lot of documentaries are filmed that way, or portions of that. Do you think that's a trend that we should follow? And we should rather do it that way, or should you try both and test and see which ones works? Is different ways of capturing that video going to work for different kinds of content? Is I wrote a note here. Does the landscape shot, does that look too professional?
All great questions. Ivan, you said you watched a live video of mine yesterday. Was it landscape
Yes.
or vertical?
It was vertical.
Yeah, vertical. Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of people, you can answer that because you're in the video space, and a lot of other people will notice that. Why are you making me hold my phone? I want to see the width. Most people don't care. They see a video, they start watching it. Okay.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
you have to really just play around with it and test. Okay. It's why, and I frustrate so many people. And let me tell you, I believe in this so much that I do it at the sacrifice of sales for my company, because I don't believe that this is the answer. So many people will tell you, if you just do this, if you just do X, you'll see Y. If you just do this, you'll see 10X results. You can expect to see 1,000 people. No, if your pastor starts wearing skinny jeans and starts preaching like Stephen Furtick, I cannot guarantee you're going to have an Elevation Church next year, because that's not your
Yes.
pastor's style. And that's not your people's style either. So 100%. Play with vertical video, play with square video, play with landscape, play with different locations. Okay. A lot of my videos get more watches when I'm not here in the office, because I've done so many videos in the office. When I go
The ones that caught my attention is when you're in your backyard. Yeah, I mentioned that to you.
I'm in my patio. I'm in backyard. I do videos in my kitchen. My kitchen gets a lot of views for some reason. People really like our kitchen. My wife
People are
wants
hungry.
to redo it. But, I capture a lot of, and we can talk about different strategies, but without going too granular, it's a matter of testing. It's looking at what's worked before, duplicating different elements of that till you find what works. It's why worship services are the way they are. For most churches, there's worship at the beginning and then preaching after. There's a reason why preaching is not typically at the front, because over 1,000 years we figured out it's good to come in and worship, set the heart right to receive the message. The big argument right now in church communications is announcements. Where do you put announcements? Do you put them at the front when people aren't really paying attention, warmed up, and it's going to go through them? Do you put them in the middle where you interrupt that flow of worship to sermon? Do you put them at the end where the last thing they remember is the events and not the message? There's no good answer. You got to play around and test it and see what's going to work for your church.
And I think you should also look at the
landscape video, try them both.
I think it's all about the user experience, because let's be honest, if I have my phone and I'm scrolling through Facebook and your video plays, and I now make, or I get a video and I make it bigger. If I have it naturally in horizontal, and now when it's shot like that, it's going to be full frame. Now, if yours is landscape, then I have to flip my phone. And how many people actually do that effort? And so in marketing, we talk about that's another step or another click or another thing I have to do before I'm going to consume. And it's just another hurdle. Another thing you mentioned, things are always changing. And so you mentioned with it changing, there is a matter of consistency that needs to happen. We were talking about consistency, and so consistency is not just about content. It's also about consistency in your messaging. Because you said there's like your last 5 kind of posts is what people are going to look at and consume maximum. And so your messaging should be consistent, and so should the branding be. Otherwise, it's going to look like a fruitcake.
Yep. Fruitcake, I like that. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Let's go into the teaching.
Cool. So the first thing, and there's no proper order. Again, I just teach it in this version because it spells the word beast. Okay.
Right.
So the first thing that's really good, it does kind of work throughout the day. So let's say Monday. Okay. The first thing you want, the B is for brand. Okay. And I'm not talking about your logo. Your brand is so much more than your logo. It's how you want to be represented in your community. It's what you want to be known for. And it's what you believe. It's your values. It's what makes you you. There are multiple churches in your city because every church is a unique body, uniquely equipped, uniquely reach a unique group of people. You need to showcase that. Okay. The reason why there's so many churches is not because we can't get along. It's not because we argue a lot. It's because we have different strengths. And God's called us to continue planting churches in 2021 because there are people that are not being served by existing churches. That's not a bad thing. That's why he's calling church plants to come alongside and collaborate with those churches. So, B for branding. What makes you unique? You're not just another church. This is one of the reasons why at Mr. Church Marketer, we don't do templates and all that kind of stuff. We want to make sure that you have a custom message for your church, a custom look, custom everything, okay? Because you are unique. You're not Elevation. You're not First Baptist down the street. You're not whatever. So branding, what makes you unique? Real simple, this could simply be something that you believe, a core value you have, a unique way that you do church, something unique about your staff organization, something unique about your building. Think of it just like what makes you you. What is something you believe? Why are you named if you're Mosaic Church, right? Where did that name come from? A great question. If you're Memorial Church, why are you named Memorial? What are you memorializing? That's a great story that you could tell. But what makes you unique? It's something you believe. Most churches have a set of core values or like statements of faith. Okay. I'm not really talking about that. I'm talking about like what makes your congregation so unique. Who are you? Are you blue collar? Do you have a lot of military family? Are you near a military base? Do you have a large Hispanic population? Do you have unique people? Do you have unique, like we have a director of storytelling? What is that? That's a great post. Okay. So something unique about your brand would be, just tell something unique about your brand. I guess it should be U.E.A.S.T, but brand is the thing. What's unique about you? It's got to be about your brand. Now you can accompany your logo with it. You can accompany your color palette with it. But it needs to be a statement of what you believe. And don't get caught up in the how either. This could be a statement. Right, we believe discipleship is done best within relationships. Okay, it could be an image. Hey, here's a picture of our group. We do church in homes because we believe that is the best place to do discipleship because discipleship is best done in the context of relationship. It could be an image. Pastor, tell me where you came up with this idea that discipleship is best done within the context of relationships. And then pastor gives it, and then I can do it as a group leader. Hey guys, I run a church group out of my house because we believe that discipleship is done within the best context. I say it different every time. I should work on that. Discipleship is done within the best context of relationships. That's 4 different posts that you can do. The same thing, 4 different ways. Right? And it's just week. And at the end of the month, people are going to know Crosswave Church does discipleship in homes because we believe that's the best context for discipleship. So it's one of those things like don't be afraid to repeat yourself, okay? Because again, 5 posts is all they're going to see. But that gives you 4 different ways to do that one post. It's something unique about your church. Maybe you don't have instruments in your church, right? At so-and-so church, we believe that we are created to worship with our voices only. That's something totally unique. We don't have a kids ministry. And we believe that kids should not be neglected and should worship alongside and learn alongside the families. And kid education is best done. Kids' spiritual journey is best done along the way. You can agree or disagree with that. But the fact is churches do it that way. And so let's be open about it. Let's explain it. Let's talk about it. So that's what brand is. B.E.A.S.T. Something about you, something about your brand, something about your church.
Wonderful.
This is the one I get the most questions on, Ivan, so shoot away.
I think I'm good. I think if I just maybe humbly add something, it would be, I love what you said. It's not just your logo. You mentioned a little bit, it's your colors. That will be there. But for me, if I talk about brand, for me, a lot of times the brand has to do with your voice. How do you speak? What is your messaging like? How do you interact with your audience? What do you say to them, etc.? And so your brand and your voice will be connected. For me, will be connected to your vision, your mission, and those kind of things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Cool. Now, don't make the mistake of posting your mission statement. That's an aside.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think your vision and your mission should be communicated through the content that you create.
Yes.
That's how people pick it up.
Yeah.
It's not going to be, here's our vision. And I see churches do that. And I'm just like,
yeah. But you could easily create branded content out of your vision statement. How are we living it out? How are we seeing it out? So next, let's go on to the E, encourage. Okay. Now this is something that churches like to do, but sometimes we do it to a fault. Okay. Now encourage, when I say encourage, I'm quite simply talking about making someone's day better. Okay. I like to think of it as someone after interacting with an encourage post should be better off than before they interacted with it. Okay. Before they see the Bible verse encouraging them that there is hope, God is bigger, God is stronger, God overcomes. If he's for us, who can be against us? I feel better after knowing that and being reminded about that, okay? What an encouraged post is not just a blank scripture, because sometimes they can come off more convicting than encouraging. Now there
Or
is
judging.
a place, or judging. Now there is a place for conviction and judgment on our side of the door within the church. Okay, righteous judgment. Okay, holy conviction. But on the other side of the door, outside of the church, we need to remind them that there is hope and purpose, and there is more. There is bread for eternal life. Okay, more above that. So we want to make sure that we encourage. This could be a little bit more of your typical church posts, but there's a reason why I only want you to do it once a week. Scripture quote, scripture passage, sermon quote, sermon clip. Okay, something that gets people like, oh yeah, okay, I understand that. I understand God's for me. I feel better for that. Could be a quote from an author or someone or a saint or some patron in the past. Maybe a story that's like, hey, they overcame it, so if you're feeling like this, you can overcome it as well. They need to feel better about themselves. Now, if you overdo encouragement, what you end up coming across as, again, your last 5 posts, if it's all just, hey, you can feel better by joining our church, there's more to life than this. Okay, if you do a bunch of that stuff, what you end up looking like is like one of those motivational profiles on Instagram where it's just sunset images with quotes plastered on top. Okay, that's not what your church is. Now, your church could have an offshoot where it's like encouragement and that's all it could be. But as far as within the context of representing your church on social media, encouragement posts work great, but really just once a week, because we got other things we want to display about our church as a holistic view of what's going on in our church. And encouragement is one of those things, again, where it's, if I see it, I'm going to feel better for having interacted it, and I'll have my interest piqued. Maybe I should pay attention next time because I'll feel better again. It's a little bit of that, hey, I feel good by interacting with this people. What else do they have?
Okay. I think I love this specific section. And just to share an idea, I've noticed when I was looking at, elevation, and then you get Stephen Furtick's channel or an elevation, way at the bottom, there's a section of videos in a playlist. I think it's just called Shorts. And that's really powerful. If you look at the attention span of people online, it's always a good idea to go and take your live stream or your sermon, go take a powerful quote out of there. I'm a quote card person myself, so I teach quote cards, etc. But this is another way of doing it. It's the next level, probably. I've taken a lot of times. For instance, on my radio show, we live stream that. Then we take that video, and we'll take a question someone asked, and we'll just cut that portion out. It's like a minute and a half, maybe 3 minutes of discussion around a certain point, and use that as content and publish that. And I think shorts and making a long form content, just giving tastes of that. What you can always do is say, okay, here's a powerful quote by a pastor this week, or not being vain, but this week, this is something that really powerful that came out of a session that I had, and here's a clip, and you show the clip, and you say, and it's like a minute long, and people just hear that, and it feels good, and it sounds awesome. But at the bottom, you say, and a lot of times that's a strategy that YouTubers use. They have that short clip. It's really powerful. And then in the description at the bottom, they say, for the full message or for the full video, click here. And so that's a great way to also build your platform.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of those things that's best practices that can fit within this strategy, and which is why I maintain this is such a high level strategy. There is no tactic from 2015 that still applies today in 2021. But the B.E.A.S.T formula works no matter if I teach it to a plant or an established church or a church that's been in the community for over 100 years, because tactics can change, strategies never change. So encourage is a big thing, and I love that too. And so that's one of the tactics. Facebook videos less than 90 seconds, YouTube videos less than 3 to 5 minutes. But you can link to the full video, pique their interest, and use that as another call to action. Me and my church, we strive for a 90-second clip on Mondays. That's when we do our encouragement. And at the end, it says, for more, download our app, because that's our main call to action, is for them to download our app. It's for non-church people as well. So it's one of those things where, like, yeah, it's an encouragement. I feel better for having watched this. The invitation is there to pursue for more, or I can keep scrolling. But again, my day is better. And again, you can use the quote cards. Love the quote cards. I wish I was better at them because I feel like all of mine look like those cheesy Instagram motivational profiles.
You guys, your
I've hit
content.
my limit.
Your content on Church Market is very, very good. I gotta say that I've scrolled. Obviously, when we started engaging, I went through your platform, especially your Facebook page, and I was just amazed at the content, man. And it's not, nothing there is repetitive. It's not tired. It's new. It's fresh. It's innovative. It's not. I've looked
Okay,
at
you
it
should
and I
stop there
said,
because I don't want you to set the bar so high and then people,
I've looked at it and I said, this is not like something I've ever seen before. So
yeah. That's props to Sierra. She's one of our designers. So we just
Nice.
put her in charge of it and said, give us some good stuff that we can use to get people thinking about their own thing and get them feeling better about what they're trying to do. So
that's awesome.
100%
I want to
love Sierra.
ask
She's doing
two.
great work.
I want to ask two questions there. The one I wanted to ask, just for interest sake, and that's for me, is what is the size of your agency and what kind of roles do you have there? Because that will kind of give us also an idea of what can we look at developing a vision to develop volunteers in those different gifts and spaces. What does your agency look like that you serve different ministries with? You mentioned Sierra. Is she creative? Is she does she come up with concepts or does she actually do the design? Tell us a little bit about your team.
It's a great question. So we've got me and Rock at the top. Rock handles more of the admin side. I handle more of the consulting solution side. So if you want to think about it, again, I like to think about it like sides of the door. I handle on the outside of the door. I get people in, and then Rock handles them on the inside with our team.
Right.
We've got a project manager, Nick. We just brought him on. He's kind of like our client success manager as well. So he's going to keep on track of the projects. He's going to communicate with you. He's going to make sure everything flows on time. If you ghost us, he's going to reach out to you and make sure that you're on track with the project, because it's as important as you, as the client, that you stay on track with this too. We're not miracle workers, right? But we do really good work as long as you're involved in the process, even if it's
awesome.
just mostly approvals. And then from there, we have a team of designers and one copywriter. We're looking at bringing on a video team as well. But we really believe that the reason why agencies work so well, and unfortunately why they are a little bit more of an investment, is because we believe in specialties, okay? Everyone has a specialty. Me as a freelancer, I maxed out because I don't know how to build a team. I don't know how to run company finances, which meant I could only serve 2 or 3 people a month. Whereas an agency, I talk to 20 pastors a week and give them solutions, whether it's us or not. Right. And then if they do choose us, we bring them in. Nick's specialty is project management. He's got the gift of administration. He also has the gift of design. So he can make sure our designers are doing great work. There's been a couple times they might miss the mark. Nick says, no, go back and let's do it this way, because this is really what the client wants. We make sure that we're not guessing. He knows the client. He's got that relationship, keeps the trains running on time. And of course, Rock's the businessman. He makes sure everything runs and makes sure everyone gets paid. Everything's running on time. He's the one that casts the vision of where we want to go. I'm just here. How can I help pastor and bring them into the fold? So that's how we structure it. If you want to look at it in terms of like structuring a volunteer ministry, I don't know if structuring a church organization is a little outside of the scope of who's listening to this, but as far as a volunteer ministry, you've got to have the person who runs the people, okay? The person who's running the team can focus on encouraging them, equipping them, making sure that they have the proper tools and putting out fires. So that way the people on the team can focus on the people and follow up. You've got someone who's got the gift of gab. Get them calling and texting. You've got someone that's got the gift of design. They should be doing the brochures, the follow-up emails, anything else that might require a design, signage, stuff like that too. And then you might have the person that's got an administrative gift, and so maybe they work on the automations, right? So if we talk about automatic texting, automatic email, they're the ones that set all that up. And then you as a volunteer person, make sure that they're happy, that they're equipped, that they're trained. Continuing education is very important to me. So you're just got one person running people, and those people are actually doing the jobs. If you want to look at it as like building out a volunteer ministry. Now, if you're the only one, or if you just got a couple people, it looks a little bit different. But eventually you got to get to the point where you have to decide, do you want to be on the back end side of things and make sure everything runs on time and smoothly and everyone's equipped? Or do you want to be on the front end side where you're actually doing the work, bringing people in, reminding them, encouraging them, hyping up the church, and getting them in that process? That's kind of, did that answer your question?
It does, yeah. So I just want to go to a person. You said, and I love that, you need a person running the team. And so in the context of what we teach is we'll talk about these are kind of the skills that you need, and for us that's a very creative ministry, and there's a lot of administration. We teach. Listen, you need a videographer, you need an editor. They can be the same person. It's better if they separate it, because your editor is going to tell stories through the gift of editing and telling. Cutting up and so on. You need a graphic designer. You can have an animator. And like in our ministry, the animator and the videographer is the same person, but loves animation. But if you can have someone that's just focuses on animation, because animation is a different ball game. There's script writing, storyboarding, voice actors, etc. That has to play. It's a completely different thing. And then you need a photographer and the videographer can be the same person, but rather not, because it's two different art forms really. And one thing that I haven't seen that I learned from you right now is, I would say the pastor should not be the person running this team. He should be the one he should be the person, the talent. In our world, in media world, we say this is the talent. This is the person with the gift that's going to interact, and that's going to give the knowledge, and it's going to share it, be on camera, etc. But there's a team behind that. Like Gary Vee has probably something like a 40-person team that does his stuff, right? They put out like 15 pieces of content on one platform, and I think
not doing all that.
I know, yeah. So he just forms, and he used to edit, and he used to get a lot of props for that. But now I think he runs his also a team that does the stuff that he does, because I think he follows Gary Vee around. All the other stuff cannot be done by him because he's on the road all the time. And wisdom is, pastor, don't run this team yourself. You should cast vision, help, equip, recruit, empower. You should be teaching, etc. But don't run the team. Get someone, and that's where in some ministries we encourage them to get a media pastor, so they'll kind of be the pastor to this team and help them. The other thing, there's a role called creative director. That's probably the best fit to run this team. And I just wanted to kind of bring that to the fore and say that's probably for me the most important and biggest valuable point from that whole segment, because sometimes a lot of times the pastor is the head of the team, and he shouldn't be, because you're not called to that. You don't have the skills. You can't speak the same language. There's going to be a disconnect. Get someone that's passionate about that and that loves doing that, loves project management, can work with people, relationships, etc., and let them run with your vision and make it a reality through media, rather than you wanting to do it yourself, because that's not going to work.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
Right? We all know that a pastor, truly a shepherd, servant leader, they need to be willing and able to clean the toilets on Saturday night before church, to clean up the nursery and take out the dirty diaper bin after church. They need to be willing to do all that stuff. And they can be willing to do all that stuff, but that doesn't mean they should. And that's why we exist, is because, the youth pastor can do the website. The admin assistant could do the social media. That doesn't mean they should. Right? It's an investment. And let me tell you this, Mr. Church Marketer, just a little plug here. We are a lot cheaper than a full-time creative director plus benefits. Okay? So it's one of those things where let the specialists handle it. And if you do go with a freelancer, that's great. But again, they're gonna hit a limit, because you might as well just hire them on to be your person, but they can't be photographer, videographer, and animator, and copywriter, and all that stuff. I mean, it's one of those things where there is a reason why agencies exist. It's because we have access to specialties at scale that you couldn't get yourself. And so just realize that just because you can doesn't mean you should. This is such a big thing working with church planters, is when I tell them, they're trying to raise $100,000. And I said, well, what have you done so far? I said, well, I'm calling people every day. I said, why are you calling people every day? You're a pastor. You're a shepherd. You got to have a team of people calling people, handing out brochures. Yeah. Yes, you can go out there too, but why would you rely on just yourself, right? You've got to raise $5,000 a week to hit your target. Well, if you bring 5 people on, now you only got to do 1,000, because everyone else is going to do 1,000 with you, right? Just because you can doesn't mean you should. You oftentimes we get so wrapped up with, well, I can do this because it's cheaper, right? but you're saving the salary position or the marketing budget. But what are you giving up? Because that's less ministry opportunities because you're sitting here trying to make WordPress work, Pastor. Okay, now I'm talking to you, Pastor. Forget Ivan for a second. Pastor, you're a shepherd. That's in your job description is not web developer. It's not social media marketer, right? It's not even janitor. Yes, you're willing to be able to do those things. And yes, you can do those things. But let me tell you, the fastest growing churches, both plants and when a new pastor comes on staff, the fastest growing churches, the most exploding churches, have pastors that have a design background, that have a sales background, that have some kind of leadership, entrepreneurship background, but they don't do any of that work. The pastor knows how to hire a great designer. The pastor knows how to hire a great guest ministry or guest services first impressions team. He builds that team that can then run itself so he can focus on shepherding, not just preaching, but shepherding throughout the week. Those are the fastest. Okay, now I'm going to talk back to you, Ivan. Those are the fastest growing churches. Is when there's a pastor that comes up who used to be the youth minister, right? But he hires a youth pastor. He says, "You do this, and just do it in the vision that God has given me." Right? The pastor that comes on, a designer, knows how much it takes, so he doesn't want to do it because he knows the investment, and instead he finds someone and trusts someone to do that, again, within the context of the vision that God has given him. Just because you can does not mean you should.
I think I want to give you guys a gift. And what I'm doing is, while I'm going to take this highlighter and I'm going to call them Justin quotes, right? And there's a couple of things that really stands out for me. This thing, you said it a couple of times, just because you can do it, doesn't mean you should, right? That's really powerful for me. And that for me is a Justin quote, right? You should send me some photos of yourself, of you, and then I'm going to create some quote cards and send it over to you as a gift and just say thank you. That's what we, and I believe in the future, in the next couple of months, we'll talk about this relationship that we're building. And I want to feature that. I want to say on our platform, say this is one of our associates or associations or partners or whatever this is going to become, and say, Justin, this is a Justin quote. The other one I loved in the previous section that you also said was, on this side of the door, that's what's happening. On that side of the door, that's where the media is happening, etc. So I just want to encourage you, being in the encouragement section, and say those were really powerful. Thank you.
Thank you. Nothing ever comes. There's nothing unique. So I'm sure I heard it from the other side of the door and this side of the door. I actually got that from speaking with my pastor emeritus at my last church, trying to figure out in my Baptist brain. I think it was John 3:36 and John 3:63, which are very Calvinistic Bible scriptures. So I was trying to wrap those around. And so Pastor Sam would say, well, on our side of the door, this is what we think, and this is kind of how we dialogue with it. But don't let it become a stumbling block for those on the other side of the door. We still want to get them to Jesus, right? And so that's kind of where that came from. But thank you for that encouragement. I look forward to it. You don't have to send me anything. I've got a stack of note cards. Everything that I say that's quotable probably came out of this stack of note cards. If you watch my Instagram lives, you'll know what's in here. Let's move on to advertise, because this is the one that if they haven't stopped watching yet, they might stop watching, because I'm going to ruffle some feathers here.
No, it's fine. Look, this is going to be evergreen for us. We're going to teach this. We're going to replay it and cut it up, and so it's going to be valuable to us.
Yeah. So let's go on to advertise. So the next day or the next post is advertise. Okay. Now this is something that a lot of pastors, when I tell them, look, you're only going to promote things once a week in your church on social media. They say, well, I got this great platform and I can communicate all the time. Okay. So why don't you just spend 90 minutes on announcements on Sunday? Why do you limit announcements to 90 seconds? You're in service for 90 minutes. You've got a captive audience. It would be better to spend 90 minutes on announcements than 90 posts on social media on announcements. We don't do that because that's not the purpose of worship service. Well, announcements is not the purpose of social media. Social media ads, absolutely. But organically posting your representation, announcements, advertisements, once a week is plenty. Now, let me break down the two types of advertisements that you can utilize, because also a lot of churches will think, well, I don't need to do an advertisement because there's nothing going on at church, especially COVID, right? But there's always something coming along your church. And I'm not talking about Sunday service. Okay, you've got a nursery ministry, kids ministry, youth ministry, benevolence ministry, feeding people, clothing people. You've got education ministry. You've got young adults, single adults, married adults, senior ministry. They're doing, you got Wednesday Bible study. You've got men's breakfast at the end of the month every month. You've got summer camp. I don't care if it's January. You've got summer camp coming up. We got to block those dates. You got whatever is coming up, even if it's in March, right? People are making their Easter plans in January, February. Make a post just to remind them, hey, this is when Easter is, right? We can put that in our schedule. So don't just advertise what's coming up. Advertise what you're doing every week. Hey guys, don't forget, every Friday at 5:30 we have food pantry. Here's our Venmo account. You support the ministry. Come pay for some more food.
Yeah.
Don't forget, hey, we have our nurturing ministry. It's safe and secure. There's check-in. Here's a picture of Joe checking in his child, putting the sticker on. We believe security is important. That's a brand post too. But hey, don't forget, we got kids ministry here, right? So you can advertise once a week, make it an upcoming event, make it something you do all the time. That's fine, okay? Because again, the whole thing's about a holistic approach. But you do it once a week, and what you don't want to do, and unfortunately, I've seen this more times than I'd care to admit. You don't take a picture of your bulletin. You don't take the poster that your communications director or Mr. Church marketer designed for you. You don't take that and put it on social media, right? Same reason why pastor doesn't take his tweets and preach them on Sunday morning. The two don't translate. Just because you don't take social media quotes and put them on a Sunday morning pulpit sermon. You don't take your poster and put it on social media. Everything needs to be done what we call natively. Natively means it's done within the platform, within the confines of how the platform best communicates. Okay, so on Facebook, that's like 90-second videos, nice images, pictures of people. On Twitter, that's short tweetable statements. Even though we have a 280-character limit on Twitter, the best performing tweets are still sub 140. So you don't want to utilize all this space. Again, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Okay, so take that poster, but what's one thing on that poster? You've got a skate park, the night at the skate park with the youth. Okay, well, you don't have to put that whole picture. Just grab a skateboard picture. Grab your kids on the skateboard. Get old Pastor Emeritus, Pastor Sam. Put him on a skateboard. Say, hey, Pastor Sam's going to be there, right? That's attention grabbing. Like everyone's going to, oh no, Pastor Sam, don't fall. Okay? God bless Pastor Sam. I don't mean to sound like I'm picking on him. I love him. Did so much for my family. Something that's captivating. Again, with commitment comes creativity. But I'm going to hamstring you here once a week because, again, if we look at those 5 posts of your church and make a judgment of your church, are you going to look like a church that's doing things? Like just you're an event hall? Are you an amusement park? Or are you going to be desperate to get more people in? Or are you going to be a church that's on a mission and a vision to disciple, to share the gospel, to improve people's lives, to improve your community? And hey, here's one of the events that does that. That's the key there. So advertise. You have my permission to advertise and promote, but you do it once a week.
Justin, I want to add to that some creativity, some things that we've done that
Yes.
works really well is even when you are working on the actual advertising. So you said, listen, something is happening, like we have the food pantry or there's welfare outreaches in the week, etc. Post those so people can see what's going on. But also, I love the kind of content where, let's say I'm planning an event. Let's say there's a women's event coming and we're planning it. I like taking photos of, my pad on the table with the pen and just taking a photo of that or whatever. So people can see, and that's for me, like there's a build up to something that's coming.
Yeah.
Like for instance, the one client we worked with, there was a women's event. I think we started with content probably 2-3 weeks before. And I think before we started, they had 10 tables booked out. And we did an awesome video where we interviewed everybody involved and talking about the involvement, what's the vision of the event, why is it going to happen, etc. And then we did posts building up to that, planning. Here's the flowers, there's a tablecloth, we booked this venue out, videos in between of stories, etc. And then a build up like okay, 5 days to the event, and it says 5 days to go, 4 days to go. So just a lot of different things happening, and just through that strategy, we were able to double the bookings of that event in those 2 or 3 weeks. So when I was in youth ministry, I did a video recording at the top where the TV was, just like an eagle shot of our planning, where we're sitting around the table, all the youth leaders and everything that was happening. And we did a time lapse of that. And that video, and that was an amazing piece of content that got great responses. And so just, everything, I loved what you said in the beginning. Just because there's no service, right? Or there wasn't a service, doesn't mean there's nothing going on. The pastor's still meeting. There's still training happening. For me, a big opportunity is, okay, I'm planning and start having conversations about what happens after the pandemic. What are we going to do then? What are things going to look like then? Those conversations, I think, is great to have a podcast about. Take photos about the meetings that we have and what we're looking at. What's the design of the new, we're definitely reinventing communication with first timers. What is that communication looking like now? What are those designs like? Let's get our community to give feedback on what that's going to look like. So I just wanted to throw in some ideas there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally blew past the different kinds of posts there.
Yeah. No.
We don't have, when I say advertise, now this is not a, hey, we've got this event coming up, sign up here. We can use story to advertise it. Like what
Exactly.
you said, taking a picture of your planning notes, right? Now, obviously, there are some creative elements to make it look good. I can't just take a picture of my notes here and say, hey, aren't you excited, right? There needs to be a story of it. Like, hey,
Yes.
I'm planning for service this Sunday. It's going to ruffle some feathers, but our people need to hear it. Here's a picture of my notes. And you got, what's he going to say? You can pinch and zoom, and now you got some engagement, right? It could be a story of what happened last time. Student camps. One of the best things we could do to get parents and donors to sign up and pay for kids. One of those donors was my dad. I showed him a video I edited of camp and then testimony. He said, all right, I'll pay someone for someone to go to summer camp.
Nice. That's awesome.
So you utilize what you already have, your back catalog. The women's event you did last year, you took all those pictures. Those are still good this year. Use those to promote and share the stories and share the events. And you see the same thing on advertisements. When you scroll through your social media, you see a picture of a happy family, and then you see the advertisement. This family's marriage was saved by the psychology service or counseling services of XYZ, right?
Yeah.
It's a picture of a happy family. It's an advertisement, but it's not a picture of a sign-up form or a link to a website. It's a picture of a happy family. It's that idea. So tell stories. One of my favorite things, I got this from Seth Muse. Shout out to Seth Muse. When he was at his last church, he would do what he calls the dumb interview. And he would go live on his phone, and he would say, hey, guys, my name is Seth. I'm here with children's pastor Laura, and we've got something up called VBS. Tell me, what's VBS? He knows what VBS is, but he's giving
That's
an
right.
opportunity
Yeah.
to open up the dialogue for people who don't know. It's Vacation Bible School. We spend 3 hours with the kids, and we do fun activities. What kind of activities what kind of activity? Are we just playing video games all the time? And then she comes, no, Seth, we're doing crafts and activities, and we give them a snack, and we do creative Bible storytelling. And he's like, that sounds like so much fun. Where do we sign up? And then that gives the opportunity for the call to action. Very simple. I love that method. I've used it a couple of times myself after he told me about that. Again, commitment breeds creativity. So, or maybe you should do commitment creates creativity. I don't know, whatever. You got me hooked on the C's. So that's one thing is there's multiple ways. A live video announcing it, setting up for the event, right? Is one thing.
Yes.
Your team praying for the event.
That is amazing.
Okay?
Setting up for the
Someone
event.
donating to the event. I mean, I could have taken a picture of my dad. Hey, this is Joel. He just paid for someone to go for a less fortunate kid. He just scholarship.
Challenge to everyone out there. Matches.
Yeah, exactly. Who
Yeah.
else wants in on this, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's so much there to capitalize. That's actually a really cool fundraising thing that we've capitalized on. When someone gives a donation to your church, I'm not talking about tithes and offering. I'm talking about a guy's like, hey, this literally happened when I was having coffee with my pastor. A guy walked up and said, hey, you're the pastor of that church down the street. Pastor says, yeah. And he says, all right, well, I want you to have this. Gave him a $100 bill, walked out of Starbucks, right? Now, that's one scenario, but I'm talking about those kind of people that are outside your church giving in, scholarshiping kids, right? Real quick, Ivan, this is a 90-second short for you. All you have to do is say, thank you so much, I appreciate it. Why did you give? And then when they tell you why, I think more kids need to go to camp. Perfect. Who else besides yourself wants to see more kids go to camp and would be willing to scholarship, just like you did?
Yeah.
And you're going to get 9 no's, but that 10th person is going to give you the name of someone that's going to scholarship another kid. right? And so that's one of those things you got to follow up, and that's part of it. So you could do that on social. Hey, this is Joel. He just scholarshiped a kid. Who else wants to scholarship? Call the church office or send us a DM, right? And we'll set that up, right?
I
You're
did
not
that
going to get
before,
anywhere
and
by not asking and
of
hoping
course,
someone
yeah.
takes action. You got to call them to action.
It's there's I think there's a scripture that says you don't have because you don't ask, and I use that method myself also before. We were collecting Bibles for a specific ministry, and so a local bookshop. There's a bookshop chain here in South Africa, and what happened was they had Bibles for really really cheap, proper printed Bibles. I don't know what they did, if they cleaning out a warehouse or whatever, but very, very cheap. So I went there, I bought 10, and I posted a picture. And I said, I bought 10 Bibles. Anybody wants to help or whatever. And so everybody and then I started getting texts and calls, and people started paying into the account. And so every time that I got this payment, I went, bought the books with the slip, took a picture and sent it to the person and say, hey, I'm going to shout you out, put it on social media, say, thanks to Quibus, he bought 30 Bibles or whatever. And so that just created a snowball. Just another pro tip quickly, I think what I love doing, and a lot of people do this after the fact, I love doing BTS, which is behind the scenes, to build something up that's coming. So telling a story of how something came together, so people anticipate and want to see the final product. That works for events or for content, anything. Yeah.
Yeah, Ivan, I wrote something down here. It's for something I'm going to teach this weekend. I want you to read it for me. Can you read that?
No.
Let's see. Maybe, okay, there we go. Right there. You can see that.
Right. Never. Baby shoes never worn.
What's that top line say?
For sale.
Right. Yeah, okay. Now read it all together.
For sale, baby shoes never worn. Yeah.
I'm going to talk about that tomorrow.
Okay.
And some people are going to read that and they're going to say, okay. Some people are going to read that and say, why are they selling baby shoes? Why did they have baby shoes? Why are they for sale? Why are they never worn? I kind of want to tune into that, right? That's kind of that taking a picture of behind the scenes, like, here's my notes. Here's a story I'm going to tell. What do you know of Ernest Hemingway, right? And so then when I teach that lesson, I'm fulfilling a promise, right? And people are going to be like, oh, okay, that's great. Now they're going to be attentive. What's the next big question? What's the next big curiosity? What are they building over there, right? They see a crate of bread and milk, and you say, coming this Saturday at 8:30, right? The people that need the food pantry food, they know what that is. But the people that don't, they're like, oh, what is that? That's pretty cool. I didn't know that. That's much better than, hey, food pantry 8:30, just like every other Saturday. It's building curiosity, building interest. Next, I want to hit on spark conversation. This is another one that church is almost overdue to a fault. And it's not even churches. It's the church communication community, because we saw it work really well for a few people. And now everyone does it and it didn't work. And so we keep doing it, trying to make it work. And that's spark conversation. So we got B.E.A.S, spark conversation. Now this is just opening a dialogue. Okay. Now there's a couple different ways to do it. You could do a poll, right? You could ask, what's your favorite pizza topping? Pepperoni, cheese, pineapple, ham, I don't know, whatever else. You could do a poll of, who's going to win the Super Bowl. You could ask a question, hey, what's your favorite music service? We're looking to put our worship music on a streaming service, right? You could ask a question like that. You could ask everyone, what's your summer plans? You could ask a question. You could also just ask, hey, what's your favorite movie growing up? And that gets people talking. Someone posts Rocky IV. Be like, I thought Rocky 2 was better, and then there's a dialogue there. You hear a lot of, when you ask this question in our circles, you hear a lot of low value questions. That's not the word. It's low risk questions. That's what it is. I think low risk questions, meaning you don't ask, is God dead, and what's the point of everything? What's the point of life? Right? That's like really high risk. Okay, same thing with politics. There's a reason why a lot of people don't post politics, because there's a high risk you're going to rub someone the wrong way. But the low risk questions, I mean, yeah, how many slices of cheese are appropriate on a grilled cheese? I'll wait. And then people are saying, well, one slice is good. Like, no, I put 2. And then you got Billy Bob. He's like, I put 7 on my grilled cheese. You're like, 7? Yeah, try it. And he posts a picture, and then people are talking and engaging, and you're just like, why is this church talking about grilled cheese? Because when I see Billy Bob on Sunday, I'm going to say, dude, I tried that 7 cheese grilled cheese. It was amazing. Or I'll pick on him, right? I'll be like, don't listen to Billy Bob. He puts pineapple on his pizza, right? You know, it's a conversation. You could say something like, you know, preachers and sneakers was a big thing. You know, you could take a picture with pastors like, he's buying sneakers, vote what brand he should do. By the way, he hates Adidas. And everyone's going to vote, and then he's got to show up on Sunday, and that's a talking point. Everyone told me to buy Adidas. I'm wearing Adidas, and I hate Adidas. Why am I listening to the people that have that have no idea who I am or why I exist or why I need these sneakers? People are telling me to wear Adidas. Why are you listening to the world when they tell you how to live? God has a plan for you. God has, and you just use that as a pivot point, right? And you spark conversation earlier in the week. It could be a little bit of a behind the scenes as well. Now, where we falter on this is, again, when that's all we do, right? Oh, this one post worked really well. Let me put 4 conversation pieces up next week. And it's just a bunch of crickets, right? Like, what's your favorite movie? What's your favorite song? What's your favorite worship song? Pink or red, right? You know, it's a bunch of that. So limit yourself to, again, once a week to spark the conversation. You could also ask for input. Doesn't have to be, and not so much input, but, you know, hey, what did you think of the new Star Wars? What did you think of the Avengers? Are you skipping work to watch the Avengers? I won't tell your boss, kind of thing. You know, it could be something that you just pose a question, you know, vote on it, pick something, ask a question. It could also be a statement, a fun challenge, right? Take a picture of your view of your desk right now. Tell a Bible story in emojis, and the next person has to guess what story that is. Tell your how's your day going in 3 emojis, something like that. You know, post a GIF of how you're reacting to pastor's new baby, right? And you get conversation in there, spark conversation. You cannot ask too many wrong questions. You can ask too many questions, all right? So again, low risk. You know, just real simple, not going to ruin any friendships, not going to burn any bridges, have some fun. And these are not always going to hit. And oftentimes when the questions don't hit, it's usually the way it's delivered, not the question itself. So it's one thing to say, what are you eating today at Cinco de Mayo, right? It was Cinco de Mayo yesterday at the time we recorded this. It's one thing to just put a graphic of a taco and says, what are you eating for Cinco de Mayo? It's another thing for pastor to go to the local taqueria and go live and say, hey, this is Pastor here. I got the best tacos. I'm having bean and cheese and potato and egg. What are you eating for Cinco de Mayo? Comment down below. And where should I go eat dinner? Because I'm keeping this taco train rolling, right? And then cut the live, 30 seconds. People are going to comment, oh, I love that restaurant. Oh, I haven't tried it yet. Oh, you got to try this taco. Oh, for dinner, you got to try this Mexican joint. Oh, we'll be here, Pastor. Do you want to come with me? You know what I'm saying? So it's not so much the question, but just play around with the delivery. And that's just one thing how can I pray for you is another very popular one. People don't typically respond to that one like in the comments, but you can always say DM us and we'll pray for you. It's almost like the prayer request form, right? So it's just something to pose a question or ask for people's thoughts or get people talking. It could also be a follow-up question. You shared a story on Sunday, and then you follow up with what Goliath are you facing right now in your household that should not be a Goliath? And then someone will post like, I cannot believe that this one tile in my house has ripped up and I hit my toe on it every time I walk by, right? And then you got John the carpenter that's, I can fix that. I'll fix that right away. And then you got dialogue going on and you got church relating with each other. So it's all about sparking conversation with that spark conversation, meaning you have to be the spark, the catalyst that ignites it, because people aren't naturally just going to start talking to each other, but you can get them talking as long as you spark the conversation.
Awesome. If you'll allow me, I want to share something from my world that could kind of add to that.
While you share that, Ivan, I'm going to step away because I got to get some water. Thank you.
No, perfect. Okay, so I wanted to ask him 2 questions, but I'll just say this. What we teach in our kind of world and our platform is a 3-step update process, and that kind of adds to that's a method or way that you can do this. And so what you'll do is when you post anything, you go and use 3 steps. The first one is, what is this post? Is it so you'll say something like, in this video, this is what's happening, right? So you give people what is really in this post. The second one is your opinion or your thoughts on it. So in this video, in this live broadcast, I'm engaging with Justin Nava about social media for churches. I really love the conversation. The second part is the opinion. I really love this conversation because there's a lot of value, and I really got 3 really powerful Justin quotes out of it. And then lastly, and this is where this strategy comes in, is you go and say, which one is your favorite Justin quote? And maybe you posted that. Or, what do you think of how long Justin takes to get back to the seat? But at the end of the day, that's just a way, by asking questions, you're telling people, listen, I would love to hear your thoughts, and I would love to hear from you. And what happens with that, another thing that you can do is, when you ask these questions, don't just ask a question that's going to get a yes or no answer, or amen, or right, or whatever. You want to go and ask a question that's open-ended, that people are going to elaborate on. And so that's the three-step process that we teach on this side. On this, Justin, on this side of the door, we teach a three-step update process. So it doesn't matter what you post. If you post a picture or video, the first step is you tell people what this is. So in this video or in this broadcast, you see me and Justin interacting around social media for churches. The second step is sharing your opinion on it. So you'll say something like, I really love this collaboration because I got a lot of notes out of it, and got 3 Justin quotes that's right here in front of me that I had to highlight. And so
only 3. I got to step it up. Okay.
And so finally, the third step is asking a question. That's where this thing comes off that Justin is teaching. So in that, I will in that post, when I post this, for instance, and I'm telling you now what I'm going to do with this video when I post it later on. Is I'll go and say, I'll do those first 2 steps, and the third step I'll say, so which of the Justin quotes is your favorite? And so people go post it at the bottom. And so Justin, I also said, when you're asking questions, and that's how you get engagement, if I ask questions, don't ask questions, you must reverse engineer the answer. What kind of answer do you want? So if you ask open-ended questions, you're going to get more engagement, etc. People are going to write sentences instead of where you ask a question, do you like Coca-Cola? And people say yes, no, maybe, amen, whatever. And that's not what you want. You don't just want one of those. Those will still give you, in the algorithm, it's still going to give you the points for getting more from Facebook, but it's not going to add value to the post or the conversation. And that's really social proof at the end of the day.
What you would say is, if you were stranded on a desert island and all you had to drink was Coca-Cola products, would you be happy on that island, or would you find every way to escape it, or something like that?
And so there's like a one
video. You could also post a video. Hey, has anyone ever ghosted you in the middle of an interview? And just put a little GIF of Ivan and me just like walking away, and Ivan's just like, I thought you were going to share a story, and I was just like, okay, well, this is the perfect time because I need a little bit more, because the next point is so important. I wanted to make sure I had enough lubrication in my mouth.
No, that's perfect. I actually
slurred my words.
While you were gone, I don't know if you caught it, but I said, what do you think of Justin just standing up, and how long is taking getting that water?
Hey, I assumed a 2-hour interview you'd give me a break. Well, you don't give it to me, I'm going to take it.
No, that's perfect. So Justin, 2 things. One, I think one of the things that's also coming through from what you said is, you should post a lot. Not everyone's going to hit. And I think the reason why I'm saying that is because I find a lot of ministries, they understand that, listen, I need to do this, and then they do it, and there's crickets, like you said, and then they don't do anything again because I didn't get the response. And you got to push through, and you got to keep on communicate, test, etc., to see when you're going to get your community to respond.
Yeah.
And then when Justin was talking about low risk content, that's a very, very powerful and important point. I can guarantee you that if you're going to veer and start going into, if you don't have a very close and loyal community, when you start going into prophecies, politics, all those kind of things, those are really dangerous things to start sharing, because you are going to get negativity and negative responses coming through. So I'm not saying always be safe. You can be controversial, but let's be controversial rather be controversial with scripture instead of going to share our interpretation of it, because that always kind of causes division. I made the mistake in 2008 of I had a dream, and it was a very private dream, and I shared it on an email list. Someone that, I don't know how they got it, but they intercepted that email, read it, completely blown out of proportion and out of context, and written a blog post out of it. And that got traction from 2008 to 2017. And I never wrote an email of my dreams again. So those are very things. There are certain things to be careful of when posting.
Yeah, we could do a whole nother training on handling negative comments and negative responses, because that 100%, that could be a liability, but you can absolutely turn that into an asset. Not every time,
Definitely.
but you can turn things around. There was something else you said, but I can't remember what it was. So we're going to go on to testimony. Now, this is the most important thing. So, of course, churches have neglected it the most. The last thing, the beast, the T, the tail end of it, but it's the most important, is testimony. And that is sharing stories of your church. Now, hear this, okay? Because a lot of people just tuned me out and said, well, we only have 4 baptisms a year. We're a small church. We've already shared everyone's testimony. I am not talking about salvation stories only, okay? I would love for your church to have 5 salvation stories a month, and then you could share a video of that. Like, that would be the dream, right? But when I say testimony, what I'm really talking about are just stories of what God is doing in your church. So that could be a salvation story. It could be, someone in recovery, right? That's okay sharing it. But it could simply be, hey, I wrote this a few weeks ago, but I won't say it exactly, but it was something like, it was a story. It was like, here's what happens in our children's ministry, our nursery, every morning. We had 3 kids. We changed 7 diapers. We changed 1 outfit because of spit up. We fed them 4 bottles, and we sanitized 20 toys. And here's the smile. We do it all over again. And it's a picture of the baby, right? That's a story. Okay. It could be a story of, one time we had a bird get stuck in our church over the ceiling tiles, and so I just recorded I documented the whole thing, and I was like, let's watch Mr. Phil try to get our maintenance guy. He's like, let's watch him try to get a bird out of our ceiling, and the bird came out, and the women ran so scared. I'm just sitting there like the bystander, like, yes, that's a story. That's a funny story. You can repost the story Pastor tells on Sunday, right? That's a story. That's a testimony. And here's the thing, it doesn't, and so often too, we think about like the I Am Second videos where there's that dynamic lighting and multiple camera angles. It doesn't have to be that. It could be a text story. Elevation does this really well. If you want to talk about copying Elevation, they take a story of one of their church members. This is Ivan. He moved to the area, wanted to get connected, didn't know a single soul, and didn't even have a job, but God called him here for something. He came to our church, met someone, that someone employed him. Now he works at the farmer's market. We are so happy to have you as part of our family. You can see Ivan holding the west door every Sunday morning at 8:30, and it's a picture of you happy, smiling. That's a story. And I didn't have to get video of you with the proper lighting at the golden hour and get it just right. It's text. and you can tell that story. It also doesn't have to come from the person. Ivan, if you're a recipient of our benevolence ministry, that means we helped you pay your rent, or we paid for your groceries, or we filled your car with gas as you continue to search for job interviews. I obviously, for your protection and privacy, I don't want to put you in front of the camera. I don't even want you to tell your story. What I can do is talk to our receptionist, and I can tell her, tell me about some of the benevolence that comes in. And we had one at my church, at the same church that I wrote this formula in. We had her tell a story of a man who didn't need rent help, didn't need anything like that. He just didn't have a car. But his brother died in that state over. And so we just simply bought him like a $40 bus ticket. I don't know what a bus ticket was. Maybe it was more than that. But we bought him a bus ticket so he could go see his brother's funeral. He had no other way to get there. That simple story of just her, because she's the one that fields the paperwork and then provides, buys the bus ticket for him. Hearing it from her perspective, and why do we do this, and how tough it is, and how there's people that need more than just milk and bread. They don't need that. He needs to see his family, right? He needs to mourn with the mourn, and we can assist with that, and then use that to build the relationship. Do you have any thoughts after the funeral? We can talk to him and bring him into the fold. So it doesn't have to be from that, right? Pastor tells stories of all the times. I can't tell you the story. I can't tell you who it is, but there was someone in my last church or in my last job, and he tells a story. Well, we can do the same thing. We can also, Ivan, we can retell stories. There's no reason to only tell a story once. There was a guy in our church, lost a lot of weight, came out of recovery, did really good stuff. We share his story every year because it's a great story. And we take a text excerpt and we put a before and after picture of him, before single, after in recovery, in a healthy relationship. Someone that had a bad relationship with their father and now they have a good relationship with their father, before and after picture. Like that kind of works too. It could be a picture of them. This is Mary, our new missionary. And here's a story of how she wants us to YARP for her, right? You get those emails. They still do those emails. Because you couldn't send an email that says pray for me because they get filtered out by the government. So we'd have to YARP for her. That's a story. There you go. I'm telling that story. That story's old, right? But you can retell those stories. Tell a story of something your church did in 1988. In 1988, our church was on a mission to pay something off or provide something. 1988, we bought a home for a blind man. Something like that. I mean, that's a story. You can retell stories. So there is no shortage of stories in your church. There's a shortage of commitment to tell them. So that's what the B.E.A.S.T formula is right here. Testimony. You have to be committed. I'm going to share one story a week. And sometimes, and I feel weird doing this too, Ivan, sometimes the only stories I have are my stories. And so I tell my stories. I tell my friends' stories. People commented like, you tell a lot of, they would tell me when I was in a small group at my church, you tell a lot of stories and a lot of pictures of your small group. And what I said was, you're absolutely right. And it drives me crazy too. Can you take a camera to your small group and start taking pictures of them and your group, and then just tell me what happens? And now I got to tell her stories because she took that camera. I use that, again, that negative comment, flip it over into an asset. You're absolutely right. Can you help me with this? And so tell stories, tell their stories. Find people to give you something, right? The hardest part of our job when we're in the creative part, and I struggle with this too, is getting those stories. So you'd have to remind people. Church is not a game that can be played one time. Okay? If you're going to ask for testimonies, you have to ask them multiple times. If you're going to ask for money for donations, you have to ask them multiple times. We don't do the offering one time when they join the church and then never ask them to give again. We do the offering as an act of worship every week. We sing every week. We preach every week. We share the gospel multiple times. We do an altar call because very rarely is someone going to come up on the first time they ever get an altar call. It might be the 7th time, 8th time, 50th time. And so you have to keep asking, give me stories. Can you tell me a story? And you're going to see people go on a mission trip and you're going to be like, do you have any pictures? And they say, no, I didn't take any pictures. You're just like, I asked you to take pictures 3 months ago. But guess what? That's my fault. I should be asking them every week until eventually they know, you know what I'm saying? Like, be like, oh, I know, I got to get you those pictures. Eventually they're going to get me those pictures. And Ivan, I get tremendous pictures. I get really good pictures now because they know that I want them to tell the story of the mission work that they're doing, the hope that they're providing, the way we do discipleship, the way that we do service, and that gets people talking and seeing that we're more than just a Bible study. We are a church. And so that's what it is. It's telling stories. So it's okay if you start with your stories, your people, your group. You're going to have that a lot anytime you bring on a new social media person. when I left my last church, I trained up someone to take my place for social media stuff. And one of the things you'll notice if you do scroll throughout the whole thing, you'll see a definite theme change, because around the time when I left and the time that she started, you start to see a lot more of her and her friends in the college group. But that's okay, because over time you start to see her family, then you start to see her family's friends, and then you start to see pictures of them. And so it grows from there. The consistency and the commitment to do that, to tell those stories, is how you get there, because then eventually you build a culture, and it's a lot of work, but you build a culture of, this happened, I better tell Ivan, right? Because everyone needs to hear this, right? It's like when when the pastor preaches 40 okay sermons, but that 41st one is just a home run. And the old ladies at the church are like, oh, I wish more people were here so they could hear this. Well, now they have the opportunity, right? And so when that happens, like, oh, I wish more people could hear this story of salvation or hope or healing. Well, now they can. Can I sit down with you and do an interview? Can I get your picture and share your story? Send me 2 paragraphs of what happened, and you can share that, right? And there's no right or wrong way to share it, but tell the stories. That itself is a testimony.
So just to kind of say thank you for all of that. I want to add some thoughts. The first one is, what Justin was telling about before and after pictures. What I've also seen that's very powerful, some people share, is they would go and share pictures of their face before Christ and after Christ. And that is a profound difference as well. Mm-hmm. You will not believe the difference between that. So that's I'm all about like personal evangelism, not me sharing the gospel with Justin, but using social media to share my story. And so I'll share those before and after pictures, or just share my whatever. And someone's going to hear that. Even and that's what's powerful for me about social media, especially if you put it on platforms like that's eternal. Like YouTube, you can go and you can get recommended again after 3 years, and people can go through a playlist, or they can go through your archives. Facebook, it's kind of posted your thing 2 weeks later, that thing's gone. But there's certain platforms where it can be, I call it being immortalized, and that story people can go and hear that again. There's also another saying that maybe just enforce what Justin said, and that is, facts tell, but stories sell. And so in one of the organizations that I'm a part of, that's something that we really say a lot. Facts tell, but stories sell. And so stories is a great way to bring across what you want to get across. So I can go and say, we've got a great missional program, or our welfare is really doing well. But if I go tell the stories, instead of saying, oh, we had some churches, I see their announcements, they're like, we handed out 50 food parcels to the homeless yesterday, and gave out 30 blankets. Great. Guys, yesterday we went out and we found John in the gutter just behind the tree on that road. You know what he had on? He had like this and this and this. We spoke to John, and he told us about his week that he had, and he was in the rain 2 days ago, and this morning someone almost ran him over it. That is much better of a story. And the last 2 things I want to add is, in one of our organizations, it's a business organization, some of us, we have actually appointed directors of storytelling, people that focus on collecting stories and interviewing people and getting that. So that's really powerful. And then lastly, Justin, I loved, there was a portion where you spoke about, for instance, the example that you were telling about, you please take pictures, and I told you that 3 months ago, right? I have a client which she wrote a little lead magnet where she's teaching about leading teams, etc., and the dynamic of that. And in her third kind of point, she had like 10 points, 10 paragraphs or 10 chapters. And in her third chapter, I caught something really profound, a quote, and I actually was so impressed by that I've used it 2 or 3 times in either teaching or consulting or whatever. And it's this, and it's really powerful. the big illusion about communication is the problem with communication is the illusion that it's actually happening. And so a lot of times we think we are communicating, but we're not really communicating. And so it's very difficult. This concept of over communicating, I don't think you can really do that, because the more you repeat things, and so even on the social media world that we're talking about, a few years ago, there was this marketing concept called the rule of 7. Now it's the rule of 12.
Yep.
People have to see your stuff in a certain message in different formats for at least 12 times before they're going to make a decision or take action, etc.
Yeah.
And so those
And
are just some thoughts.
to add on to that rule, there's another saying in business, but it really works in churches too. Fortune is in the follow-up, right?
Awesome.
How many times have we said something in church, posted something on church, and they come up and say, "Oh, I didn't hear about that." And we see this a lot in the church communication groups. Well, it was in the bulletin, it was on social media, we sent an email out about it, and we did it from the pulpit. Well, guess what? She's not on social media. Your email was one of 100 that she got that day. She wasn't there at church the day it was in the pulpit, and your bulletin announcement is buried at the bottom underneath 7 of them, plus a message from the pastor, plus your order of service, plus your weekly events, plus the Connect card, right? So Can you really blame her for not seeing it? Because again, she's not a creative. She's not the church person in ministry. Okay. And you say, well, I put it everywhere. You put it everywhere once, which means you said it 4 times. You got 8 more to go.
That's right.
So fortune's in the follow-up. It needs to be in the bulletin for multiple weeks. It needs to be preached from the pastor multiple times. Needs to be announced by someone else multiple times. It needs to be on social media multiple times. It needs to be emailed multiple times, right? So it's one of those things where it's like, it's not enough just to do it once, right? It's the same thing. I don't like having a follow-up either. But it's like you said, you can't over-communicate, because it's better to over-communicate and get it done than to under-communicate and risk it not being done well. So that's, to add on top of that, fortune is in the follow-up. There's nothing wrong with continuing to ask. Just because someone doesn't volunteer for your ministry when you ask them the first time, doesn't mean they'll always say no. 0 interest is still a level of interest.
Wow.
That's
amazing.
a Grant Cardone quote. Not me. Don't contribute that to me.
I'm not going to quote you on that. Okay, Justin, any final thoughts? Anything you want to leave everybody with before we go?
So 2 bonus things, and I won't go as deep into them. If you want to do 7 posts a week, okay?
Please.
I'd like to say Beastly, right? You want to be Beastly, almost like L-Y. L is live. That's very simple. It could be your sermon. Obviously, it'd be better, too, if you just go live. Hey, I'm eating tacos at the taqueria. Here's what I'm eating. You see me going live. I share something that's on my heart that day. I shared my Iron Man collection. I shared some of the books I might do. I might share something like, hey, I'm at the park with my daughter, right? You can go live, and that's great. The other one is why for your community, right? And I say your community, okay? We can celebrate with other churches. We can celebrate when things happen across the country, but people will pay most attention. If you are a local church, then you need to celebrate your community. Who's a veteran that's coming home? Who's a veteran that's turning 80? Who passed away this week that was a monumental person in your community, building schools and homes for the elderly in the 80s, right? What's a new business that's worth patronizing? What's an event going on, right? Every community, at least around where I've ever lived, have always done something special for 4th of July. So what are some things that you can do in your community? Who can you highlight? You literally have pieces of your community in your church. What's going on in their lives, right?
Yeah.
So promote your community, share local news, right? We're going to pray for this sad news. We're going to rejoice in this happy news. We're going to mourn for this bad news. We're going to celebrate for this happy news, right? So it's just one of those things. You can do a high risk post, but you can also, everyone can celebrate the graduating class, right? You can celebrate the 3 people in your church that are graduating. You can also celebrate the 100 that are graduating in your small town or the school next door. Celebrate something or post something that's going on in your community. That's going to show that you are a cornerstone of the community. The church used to be that. Now we're not. Let's get back into it and be a part of the community. So real quick, if you want to just add 2 more, go live once a week and share something that's going on in your community. So that's the Beastly formula. As far as when to post it, me personally, if you really just don't want to think about it, You can just follow the days of the week. B on Monday, branding. That's a good day to start the week. E for encouragement. All right, well, we need some encouragement to go throughout the week. Monday was probably bad. A for advertising. Wednesday's a great sales day. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So advertising works really great in the middle of the week. Thursday, spark conversation. The weekend's coming. People are excited. Friday, testimony is great because if you don't post anything for the weekend, that testimony has a chance to live and breathe throughout the whole weekend.
Wow.
So I like to end the week on a testimony. Friday, get people's, and you can play with that. You could also do it at different variations. Now, 5 to 7 days a week, Facebook, Instagram, great. Twitter, okay, I'm sorry if you're not tweeting at least 5 times a day. There's no reason to be on Twitter. So I like to do B.E.A.S.T every day, right? In fact, right now I like to B.E.A.S.T twice a day. I try to post 10 posts a day on Twitter. It's a lot, but it's my favorite platform. You can experiment with different things. And then also don't be afraid to break the rules. I am literally, Ivan, while we were recording this, I am breaking the rules for my own church. Typically I follow a B.E.A.S.T strategy at my church, but last week, I don't know how, I got ahead of myself and I scheduled a bunch of stuff that I meant to put out next week. And so when Monday came, I realized I missed my own calendar because I always schedule a week out. And so I have a whole empty week. And so you know what I did? Let's break the rules. I'm not going to worry about B.E.A.S.T. I'm not going to worry about, we're doing a live stream replay tonight. That's what we do every Thursday night. So I said, you know what? It's May. Let's do memes. May is meme month. And I'm posting 2 memes a day, and we are getting the best engagement we have all year. People love our memes. I made church-specific memes. I shared just general Christian memes. I'm sharing 2 a day. And now I'm like, I should probably be posting more. Break the rules. See what happens. Shake things up, right? It's the reason why we do church on the lawn or church at the lake, or we have a Vesper service, which, by the way, I haven't seen one in like years. I miss those, where you just have the candlelit service, no instruments, no electronics, right? And just nice, quiet, dark, reflective. Anyways, shake it up. Don't be afraid to break the rules, but do it on purpose. Don't break the rules or neglect best practices because you're lazy or don't want to do it, right?
Right.
When I was in band, we had a TA come. It's a teacher's assistant. And he played trumpet. And one day, one of our trumpeters was gone. I don't know why. He grabbed his trumpet and sat in the trumpet section. Now, this was in high school. And he sat. And when you play instruments, Ivan, I don't know if you're a musician. In school, they teach you your feet have to be flat on the floor. This opens up your hips, allows you to take a deep breath and get really good control. The TA did not do that. He crossed his legs and shoved them under his chair, and he would play. And our lead trumpet guy gave him a hard time. He's like, Mr. Brian, you're supposed to have your feet flat on the floor. And of course, everyone's like, ooh. And Brian's like, after you graduate college, you can sit however you want. And he just starts blasting the trumpet. And everyone's like, oh, man. So it's that thing where it's like, once you get used to it and the best practices, then you can play around with what really works for you. Right? And every church is going to be different. So, you may have to nix one. Maybe your church just doesn't like talking, right? So you double up on the testimony. Or maybe you are maybe you are a cornerstone and everyone knows what you stand for. So you only do a brand post every other week and you double up on the testimony. Or you do got a lot of chatty Cathys. Or my church, we love humor, right? Our best performing post in April was a comic strip, right? And so I know that when I want to spark conversation, it's gonna come from a place of humor. When I share a testimony, it's going to come from a place of this is something funny that happened in our church, or doesn't God have a sense of humor that this happened in our church? When I encourage, like, hey, let's make your day better with a funny joke or something like that. So humor is very big in our church culture. It's not going to work everywhere else. In fact, you may offend people, right? So it's one of those things you got to play with it, but don't be afraid to experiment. That's why we have analytics. You go back and look and see what went well, what didn't go well, what can I change to improve for next time. And if you notice that a live is doing better, do 2 lives next week. See what the threshold is. There's a bliss point in food, and it's going to be worse in America than it is for you, Ivan, or anyone else watching overseas. There's a bliss point in food, which means you can add sugar to any food, and it will taste better to a certain point. And so if you imagine a parabola, that's a curved line. The more sugar you add, the better it is. But you get to a certain point where you add more sugar and it gets worse. So there's a bliss point where you can figure out lives work, but they only work up to 3 days a week. After 4 days a week, people get tired, get used to it, they get numb to it, and you back off. So figure out what that bliss point is for you, and it's a lot healthier than sugar in your ketchup or coffee or whatever else you put it in. Let me leave you. Can I leave? Do we have time for one more thing, Ivan?
Please, thank you. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna leave you with one more thing because my 2:00 got canceled, so I'm free for another few minutes.
Nice. Okay.
Ivan, do you have you ever been a preacher or a teacher or anything like that in the church? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, are you like me, where you show up 51 weeks of the year, you give it your all, you teach, you preach, you have certain things you expect. You know you're probably going to get 10, 20 salvations out of the year, maybe, you know, if you're really good. And then you have a guest preacher come on, and it's like a revival, and you're like, where have all these people been for the last 51 weeks? I call that, and I don't know if this is my idea or not, but I call that the pitch hitter theory, or a pitch hitter experience. Pitch hitter in baseball is when, instead of you going to bat, they replace you with another player, and all he's going to do is go to bat for you. Because statistically, the pitch hitter will hit the ball better than you can. Even though you've been hitting it, and you're getting 1 out of 3 in your Hall of Fame levels, when the game comes down to it, and you're tired in the bottom of the ninth, which is the end of the game, a pitch hitter who's fresh, who hasn't played anything and is warmed up, ready to go, he's not tired, he's going to hit the ball better than you can. And in the same way that it happens in church, right? Pastor can preach for 51 weeks out of the year, and that one guest preacher comes, and it's a revival. There's 50 altar calls, 50 people are coming, people are praise dancing in the streets, and it's like, oh, what? It's like, where have all these people been? Apply the same thing to social media. Do not be afraid if you are in charge of social media. Again, that doesn't mean you have to do all the social media. Let someone take it and run with it for a week. Let them make some mistakes, but you might also find out that, hey, they really have really good youth relationships. And so they're getting more information about the youth. They're really good at storytelling, or they're really good at videos, better than I could ever be. And you get more engagement. You get an outside eye, a fresh perspective. So don't be afraid to let someone else in the church try your social media, even for a week. Do what we call in the social media world a takeover. Let the children's pastor run the church social media account. Let a youth run the social media account. And then if you want to really spice it up, I haven't found anyone to take me up on this offer, and I'm not even sure it's a good offer, Ivan. Trade places with someone in a different church. Get with another church communicator in another church and just trade places. Okay, you can tell them, hey, this is a takeover from First Baptist. We're running the First Methodist Church. Get ready for Baptist memes. You don't have to be like that. But, you know, find out what you have in common, what resonates. You might be more courageous to try something you haven't tried before. Or you could be public about it. Hey, I'm with First Baptist Euless, and I'm from Mosaic Church Euless. We're trading phones here, and we're going to encourage each other's churches and share what it's like with our brothers and sisters. We're going to do this because we're partnering up for VBS this summer, right? Like, that's a great segue. So they're not strangers when they come in, and people are like, who's this guy taking pictures? Oh, he's the guy from Instagram a couple weeks ago. So don't be afraid to switch things up, because when you do, you just might have that pitch hitter that really knocks it out of the park. And A, you can pass on more work to them and share some of the load. Or B, you realize they're a great photographer. So, hey, can you start taking photos for me? And you still run the account, but they provide the photos. One of the greatest feelings, and I'll leave you with this, I've in the spirit of collaboration, when I moved to Mr. Church Marketer, I was just a freelancer. And I knew I had hit my limit as far as design. I just, without investing tens of thousands of dollars, I was not going to get better as a designer with my resources at hand. What I was good was at relating with pastors and finding solutions. So when I partnered with Mr. Church Marketer, my very first website that I sold, I basically told Rock, I said, this is the kind of website they need. This is what it needs to do, and here's kind of how it should look. When I got the homepage preview, just the homepage preview back, and I saw this beautiful website that I could not have done myself. I'm serious. I was in a parking lot. I opened it up on my phone, and I just stopped, and I almost started crying, because I was like, this is what it's supposed to be like. I cannot sit here and try to find solutions and then fulfill them and then write it and design it and tweak it and develop it and do all the techie stuff. One person can only do so much. But when we had a team together and I could just pitch the vision, this is what we need. And then the web designer says, this is how it should look. And the copywriter says, this is what it should say. And the developer says, this is how it should act on the back end. And all these pieces come together, and I was like, it was just awe-inspiring. And so it was a similar feeling when we had a new kid come in to our church, and he just did some way better videos than I could ever do. And so you just have to take a risk, Be a little uncomfortable, let go of the reins, allow some failure, and learn from it, and let someone else assist you and share the load. Because I hope that if you haven't felt that feeling where you're almost moved to tears because you've led a team to do something instead of you do it yourself, it's one of the greatest feelings ever. And so don't be afraid to share some of that. Let someone else come in and pitch hit. Let someone else come and run it and see what you can learn. Maybe it doesn't work out, and that's okay. But it's better to try than fail than never try at all. I don't remember who said that, but experiment with it, because only then can you innovate and bring up new things. Collaborate with that.
Awesome. I love that. I've experienced that a couple of times where you look at something or someone says something or someone does something. Like often I'll sit at the doctor and I just experienced the anointing of that gift in there, and I'm thinking, they'll just work with you, and I'm like, I'm tearing up because I said, I really think God has called them, and especially the doctor's called him, he's given him this gift, and I experienced the anointing on him. You also, we'll do for our launch that's happening this week. We're opening up our offer next week, and one of the pieces of content that we're going to do is meet the team, where we're going to have the guy that designed our site for us. I've been working with WordPress for 10 years. And so this concept of, okay, let me do it myself. And I think we alluded to that earlier, like you don't have to do it yourself. And, he just, we gave him the site, gave him the logins, etc. And what came back was just, I could never imagine that. So that's just amazing. So just to add on what Justin said, he was talking about that strategy of why at the end of the week, your community, a strategy that I really love and I often teach is, let's say you're a pastor and you're in a community, like you're a community church. A great strategy is to have a podcast that's promoted for everybody in the community to listen to. And it's not a religious thing. But you are collaborating. You're getting it's like an interview show maybe, and you get the some businesses to come and talk to you about what's happening in the community economic wise, and how's business, and what are you guys doing new. Interview the school. Interview the guys that's cum laude at school that did really well. Local sports team. Maybe there's something happening at the old age home. Maybe they have a new building. There's a new investor coming into town. What is his vision, etc. And what that does is it positions you as an influencer because you're having all these conversations, and you are known as Pastor so-and-so who hosts this podcast that serves the community. And it's not about the church. It's not about the pastor. There's no religion involved. It's just interaction. And so people talk about Pastor so-and-so. And so people want to know, where's Pastor so-and-so from? Where's his church? And people go and visit him because of that. It's a small effort. It might take you 20 minutes a week to do that. You have a post-production team and just that. And Justin, I love Twitter. I haven't been on there for a while, but I built a brand probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I built a brand from scratch. Didn't have a lot of followers, but 900 diehard fans. We had a barbecue platform. And so we just went and searched on Twitter, people talking about meat and Brian sauce and all that kind of things. And we just entered conversations. And so that's a very good strategy for a church also to use. I know that Hillsong uses it pretty well, where they go and they look at conversations already happening and go and form part of it. And that's really, really powerful. So, Justin, I assume that you're taught out, and so I'm sure we can carry on. But I think we can.
The secret to never having to warm up is to never cool down. I could keep going, but unfortunately, I've got pastors out there I got to talk to and meet with and provide solutions for. I'd love to continue to do this another time, and I definitely want to get Rock on here because as much experience as I've had working in the church, God has not called me to pastorship. So the best experience I have is from a director level, volunteer level, full-time level, admin level, but I've never been a pastor or a shepherd, and God's I'm just never going to be that. Rock is in the marketing space with me, but he is an ordained pastor, so he's got a unique perspective he could also provide with that, and I think that's one of the things that works so well with us.
Do you want to just share with me again that Justin quote you just shared with us? The secret to never, what was it about cooling down? And this?
If you never cool down, you never have to warm up.
The secret to, yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, here are my Justin quotes of the session. Just to recap, there's no shortage of stories. There's a shortage of commitment to telling them. That's one. So that's one of the takeaways. With commitment comes creativity. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you have to do it, or you should.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens inside of this door is maybe not the same thing happening outside the door. Justin, I honor you. Thank you so much. It was absolute privilege spending time with you. And I'm looking forward to doing so many things with this recording. I'm going to send it out to the COVID-proof list tomorrow and just tell them I had a great session yesterday with the guys over there at Church Marketer, and here's a good session. So they are one of the first big communities that's going to access this. I have live streamed this on YouTube, in the private kind of a community Facebook group community, and obviously on our page. And I think it's going to be really valuable. Already 2 comments came through. This is one of my students, Motla Lepula, who said rules are meant to be broken. So she just fed back on that. And she picked up on trading places with another church, encouraging to switch things for collaboration. I think it's very risky, but I want to see how that works and plays out.
Have lunch with the person first. Make sure they're not crazy about it.
I think trading the takeover is a very good idea, especially if you're within the same church. That could work really well, like the youth group takeover the ministry. Something that would work really well is like the youth takes over the men's ministry maybe and gives a children's perspective of fatherhood, that kind of thing. I think that would work really well. Justin, thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I'm looking forward to some sessions in the future. Let's set up that session on the live streaming and interaction with Rock for next week. I don't know if I should use the same link to book, but we're definitely going to do that.
I'll have them send you one. Or
okay, perfect.
Maybe our assistant will send it to you.
No
we'll figure it out.
So let Java send it to me. Justin, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Have a great day further. And if I was around, I'd take you out for tacos right now.
I would take you up on that 100%. If you want to continue the conversation, you can find us at mrchurchmarketer.com.
Definitely.
Or I'm at Justin Nava. I'm sure Ivan will put that somewhere in the notes or comments. At Justin Nava on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, pretty much everywhere. And I'd love to talk with you. I will never charge you to find solutions for you, whether we do it or not. I just want to help. I tell people I'd rather have a mansion in heaven than a mansion here. So I will do it at the detriment of passing the sale on to someone else. I just want to see you succeed. Okay, which is why I'm spending 2 hours here with you, then on the phone.
Yes,
I got to get back on the phone, get back in my Zoom meetings.
That was a huge seed, yeah. So thank you, and there's definitely a relationship evolving. I think something in the future is something like we get it, where we coach people and they say, I don't have a team, I don't have the capacity, and so Mr. Church Marketer will definitely become one of our partners that we refer to in the future when that happens, and we're looking forward to that. Thanks, Justin, for your time. Thank you for everyone that's watching. You are welcome to ask questions after this broadcast, and we will answer that. If it's meant for Justin specifically, I'll tag him or we'll find some solution for that. Thank you so much for listening and watching the Ministry Media Show. It's been a marathon. It's the longest one we had yet, and thank you, Justin. Thanks, guys. We'll see you again in the next episode.